Hey, what's up? It's Kit. Time for another video. Today, we're going very basic. And this video is specifically for those guys that want to go into fishing, but they kind of don't have an idea of what to buy. Now, it's pretty straightforward in certain places on Earth. You actually have only a handful of choices. But if you're in a place where everything's there, kind of daunting. All right, been there, done that, and as someone who literally is in the industry for this, looking back at how it was, it's not as simple and straightforward as we want it to be. Even back then, when we had fewer choices. Okay, so this video is specifically for those guys that want to get into fishing, but don't have a clue and want to have at least an idea of what they're getting themselves into. We're going to be talking about the reels specifically, but down the line, in another video, we'll be talking about both reels and rods and which lines to put in. Okay, so we're going to be doing like a basic series, but I want to get you guys familiarized with the kind of gear that's available out there. Some of what I'm going to show you are a bit specialized, okay? Because that's just the reality of the world we live in today. To start with, the reels and generally the equipment that's available to you depends on which part of the world you're from. Now, I'm going to give you an example. If someone starts out here, they would more likely have gear that's totally different from, let's say, someone who's going to start out in the US. Okay? So we'll tackle the US first because they have the most, let's say, as far as choices are concerned when it comes to fishing equipment, they kind of have everything. Okay? So more than likely, if you are in the US, the first reel you will encounter or get recommended to use would be something like this. It depends on your age, actually. If you're a kid, okay, or someone who's a little bit advanced in age and starting out, you'll find that they gravitate towards this, okay? And this is what is called a spin cast reel. It is by no means a basic reel, okay, per se. So the use or function is basic. However, like take for example, this one is actually quite advanced. Okay, actually this is kind of specialized. So this is, again, a spin cast reel. It's very, very easy to use. Thumb bar is here, you press that, and then you cast out. Okay, so boom, just like that. So you hold it, okay? You hold it, and when you let go, it gives you line. To retrieve line, you reel. Just like that. There's no other thing to press or not. So press, hold, boom, cast out. And then to retrieve, you just turn the handle and that's that. Now, basic function of the reel, of course, is to release line. You press this button right here. Don't worry, okay? These guys, although this kind of looks like a spaceship, but these guys come in different shapes and forms. However, the function remains the same. You will have a knob here, which is called the drag knob. You'll have a negative and a positive, or minus and a plus sign. And to make the line slip less, turn towards the plus. And you'll find that it'll give it progressively more resistance. That's called the drag knob. Okay, so it will give you more resistance the more you click it onto the plus. Okay, now this function is called a drag. Each and every single reel that I will show you will have a function called the drag. Okay, it's a basic for pretty much all reels. Now, the function of the drag is so that when the fish runs, it gives it resistance. Think about it this way. If the fish was human, you're actually putting a backpack behind that guy. And as it runs, okay, as it runs and takes line, the backpack progressively gets heavier. Okay, it's too early to explain the physics of this. Okay, but the more line it takes, the more resistance the reel will give it. Okay, so the more the line diminishes, the more this resistance increases. That's it. Okay, that's true for all reels. Now, the easiest, again, very easy to learn, very, very basic, the spin cast reel. A step above that is something that pretty much the whole world learns from, and that is called the spinning reel. It's called the spinning reel because of that. The spin cast reel is like a spinning reel, only upside down. Okay, so a more advanced version of the spin cast reel would be this. To cast this, you will need the rod that sits here. So this actually is the only reel of its type. Well, no, there's another too, but this reel actually sits on the bottom of the rod, whereas this sits on top of the rod. And there's a reason for that, which we'll go to later. And that's the third type of reel that I'm going to be showing you. But for this one, this reel actually sits on the bottom of the rod, and you will hold it like this. Okay? The spinning reel, like the spin cast reel, has a fixed spool. So both of these are called fixed spool reels. They're in the same family. This has a bail arm, which is this. Okay, so to cast it, you take the line in your index finger, hold the line, open the bail, and then you cast it by pulling the rod back and then smartly pushing it. Once it reaches 11 o'clock, if you're casting against the clock face, once it reaches 11 o'clock, you let go of the line, and that's how you cast. And the line would just shoot out. Now, I would say I could get someone to cast this in about 15 minutes or less. I can get someone to cast this in about 10 minutes or less. So, very easy to use, very easy to use. And anyone in any age would be able to use the spinning reel. Now, the spinning reel has the drag knob here. Okay, so same as the drag, what do you call this? Dial. Okay, the drag dial on a spin cast reel, this has a knob. Okay, and that's to loosen right here. This is to tighten. And what happens is that you adjust the drag again to give resistance when the fish runs. And that's how you fight the fish. That's how you tire the fish out. So that's the basic function of this. Now, moving on, in the US, this is the most popular reel. It's called the bait cast reel, or bait caster for short. As you can see, it's very similar to the spin cast reel. This is why this is very popular, because a lot of people in the US started out with this and they graduate to this. And this is the reel of choice for a lot of people. There's a lot of use for this in Asia for fishing for toman, and actually even bass, because Asia has bass, especially in Japan. And this one, pretty much globally, there's a lot more people using this, okay? A bit specialized, and the learning curve for this is actually longer than this one, okay? Although there are reels that have the braking or the cast control systems on these, which are very advanced, the use for these is still quite limited compared to these, especially in saltwater, okay? So how a bait caster works is there's a thumb bar here, which you press, okay, to cast, like so. And then you cast it. Same thing. So you load the rod by pulling it back, and then once it reaches 11 o'clock, you let go of the spool. Now, here's the key difference. For this, you thumb the spool lightly so that the line actually, what do you call this? The line goes out of the spool. As you can see, this is a revolving spool reel. So, see? Now, the trick here is to just thumb it enough so that it does not, uh, backlash. Okay, and a backlash happens when the spool turns faster than it going out. Okay, the spool turns faster than the line goes out. Sorry. Okay, so that's when the backlash happens, and basically it's a huge tangle here, and your thumb is responsible for that. So, in essence, this is kind of it's not very difficult. It's not impossible to learn because a lot of people have learned it. It's just that it takes a longer time to learn. The learning curve of this is actually longer than this. So about a year probably to be very proficient. Okay? But with this, you get very accurate casts, and if you just know, if you tune it properly, it actually casts farther. Okay? World records, the longest world record casts are used or are made, or casts made by these types of reels more than these types of reels. But again, they're harder to control. Also, when you're casting this, one good thing to note, especially if you're planning to learn this, is that as soon as the lure or weight lands in the water, you have to completely thumb the spool, press down on it to stop it from spinning. Otherwise, a backlash will happen. Okay. Now, there are bigger reels, bigger bait casters that are called conventional reels. Okay, so basically, conventional reels means these types, revolving spool reels. That's it. They're also called conventional reels. Some people call them overheads. Okay, the specialized types for what's called jigging now, which is very, very specific for fast and slow jigging, are these types. They have either star drags or lever drags, and it has become very specific because the Japanese are very specific when it comes to their equipment. So something like this, you'll see, you cannot cast these specific jigging reels, and very, very specific use for fishing vertically in deep water. And then big game reels, trolling reels, okay, so which can be used for drifting, fishing for tuna and big pelagics, look something like this. So this is made for a type of line that's called braided line. This is braided line, and you'll see this nylon is mono. So we use mono still as leaders, and then underneath, like take for example this one, this has a very long length of mono up to about 30 yards or 30 meters, and this is called a top shot, okay? And then underneath that is braid, which is your actual fishing line. Trolling reels typically have these things called harness lugs, so that when you're fighting, it actually attaches to a harness or some sort of belt that helps you fight the fish hands free. Okay, so when you're resting and the fish is running, you can let go of the reel, just sit back like that, and the reel's going to be like, just positioned on the rod. There's going to be like a string of sorts here or a belt. Okay, and then once the fish starts resting, you can grab hold of the rod and start pumping it again. So these harness lugs are very important for big game type reels. and that's why they have them. This come in different sizes, and these are used for a type of fishing called trolling or big game fishing. Okay, so big game fishing could be a number of things. It could be drifting. It could be dropping huge baits in deeper water, and trolling. Trolling is the type of fishing where you're fishing from a moving boat. So you're going to be using reels of this type. So that's that for the conventional stuff. You would also most likely encounter reels that look like this with very thick line. And these are called fly reels. These come in different sizes and makes and models as well, brands especially. If you see something like this and you're not familiar, you would most likely say that they're very expensive, and some of them are. But this type of fishing is very, very specialized, especially if you come from a part of the world that doesn't see much of this. It's strange. Okay, so you're casting the line on this as opposed to a weight at the very end. So again, fly reels. There's also some center pin reels that are similar, but you don't use these types of lines. You use ordinary monofilament, and those are again very specific to some fisheries in the US and some in Europe for fishing with floats. Okay, if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask and drop them in the comments section. If I missed something, drop them down there. But basically, these are the very typical reels that you will find when you walk into the shop. Now, make no mistake, okay? If you want one to learn from, which one? It depends on where you're at. If you're in the US, more than likely, this is where you'll end up in, okay? If you're in the rest of the world, more than likely, about 90% would choose a reel this type. Fishing has become very specific, and it depends on where you're at, but gear also becomes a bit specialized. So when you walk into a shop, more than likely, if you say, you just want to go fishing, if they don't ask you what type of fishing you want to do, they'll most likely recommend something that's kind of big for the type of fishing that you're gonna do. So here's the thing: if you're saltwater fishing, you can't take your gear freshwater fishing. Too big, okay? And then you'll be catching smaller fish and you won't enjoy it. Now, if you are a freshwater fisherman and you go to saltwater, you'll find that you might be a little bit undergunned in most situations. So it is very it's recommended that you actually snoop around and see exactly what sort of fish is available, or decide on what you want to catch. Like, take for example, if you're in the US or some part of Asia where trout are present, you say you want to target trout, so get a 3,000 sized reel or a 2,500, and you're good to go. So you're fishing in smaller creeks, not really big rivers and stuff. So you don't have to cast quite far. So choose a spinning system. If you're in the U.S. and you're, let's say, Midwest or Tennessee somewhere, and you want to start out fishing and you don't want to spend a lot, you just want to, let's say, dip your toes in the water, so to speak, test out the waters and stuff, you'll find that there are a lot of spin cast combos for sale that are quite affordable, and they're very easy to use. You don't need instructions. You actually just start, okay? Fishing with floats, some lures perhaps, if you want to try out lures, fishing with lures and stuff. So yeah, there's options. There's a lot of options, and again, these types even with the rod, reel, and line, they don't cost much, especially, again, if you're in the US. Outside of the US, spinning reels, rods, combos are the go. I guess in Australia, it's the same thing. A lot of kids actually learn with this. Certain parts of the world also have the handle switched here. And the good thing about these two types of reels is that you can actually just switch them. Okay, again, that's something that a lot of people that are starting out might want to see, is that you can just switch this, and here it's stuck now, but you could take this cover, put it on this side, and then put the handle on this side, and it's that simple. Alrighty. Best piece of advice that I can probably give you when it comes to buying gear is that don't be cheap. You get what you pay for when it comes to these things. $200 rod, reel, line budget maybe would get you something decent in the US. I know it's a lot, but if you're really interested and you want to progress, a $200 combo would probably last you more than a $20 combo, and it's just going to give you a miserable life. But yeah, my advice is start out with a spinning reel. 90% of the people in the world start out with this. Can't go wrong with it. And if you buy a high quality combo, it'll last you for pretty much most of your fishing career. Alrighty. That's it for this video. Again, as I stated earlier, if you have questions, drop them in the comments section below. If you haven't yet and you want to learn more, click on that subscribe button. Share this channel to your friends, because guess what? Fishing sucks when you're alone. So it's better to learn together with your friends, and especially family. It's a very good family activity. Alrighty, and for those guys that want to support the channel more, click on the join button. And that's it for this video. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Class dismissed.